St. John Armenian Apostolic Church is the longest-serving spiritual home for the Bay Area's Armenian American community, with its roots stretching back to the 1920s.
This church is a part of the grain of our family, so I'm very proud to call St. John home.
I come here when I am happy, and thank God. I come here when I am in distress or sad for help, and I find it all here.
It's just a sense of peace. We're so busy in the world, and so many things going on, and so many things coming at us. You can let your guard down here. You can be who you are.
Coming to St. John kind of connects to a family history.
Paula and I, my wife, we've been married, and so this church holds a special place for us in our hearts because we got married here. It's a place where we feel like we can get centered again, reconnect with the community in a deeper level.
I'm super proud to be a member of this church. I mean, my parents got married in this church. I got married in this church. I was baptized in this church. This church has basically been my home.
Yeretzgin Ani and I were invited to visit St. John for the first time officially as candidates. The minute I walked into the sanctuary, I felt as though I was walking into my grandmother's house. There was a spirit of the place which was warm, which was inviting, which was, while still majestic and worthy of reverence, was still also very comfortable and familiar.
2017 marks the 75th anniversary of St. John Parish and the 60th anniversary of its current sanctuary on Olympia Way.
It's a beautiful community that is so welcoming and inviting at its core and in its nature that I feel a very deep sense of responsibility to serve it dutifully, to do it justice, to present it and to share it with the world. I want other people to have the same experience that I had walking into this church.
With the number of Armenians growing in the Bay Area in the early part of the century, a parish council was formed in 1924 to lead St. Nerses Shnorali Parish, as it would come to be known. Sunday services were held at Holy Trinity Greek Orthodox Church on 7th Street with the help of priests from the Fresno area.
There were people who didn't necessarily want to live an agricultural life, and so they came to San Francisco. This is why, we already find by the beginning of the 1920s that there is a community that's forming here and congealing.
In 1941, St. John established their first permanent home, purchasing a Lutheran church on Elgin Park with the financial and spiritual help from Samuel and Rose Galston.
My grandparents came to San Francisco in 1929. They came here from Yokohama, Japan. One of their primary objectives in coming to San Francisco was to establish an Armenian church. My grandmother was committed to the idea of, especially here in San Francisco, of having a church. They felt that they were in a position economically to make that contribution, and they had purchased a property on Market Street when they first arrived, and then later when the church was being established, they donated that property.
In some ways, the roots of this church run very deep, as much as 4 generations deep.
Father Levon Paronak, then pastor, designed and built the altar with the help of several talented parishioners. And on December 7th, 1941, Pearl Harbor Day, the altar was consecrated. 1 month later, the sanctuary was consecrated and given the name St. John Armenian Church, a name that Samuel and Rose chose. That same majestic altar still exists today at the current sanctuary on Olympia Way.
The name John was very important to my grandmother, which was why they chose the name. John was her brother who died as a child from meningitis. Naming the church after him was a way of remembering him and honoring his memory.
A young and vibrant priest named Father Artun Sempadian and his wife Yeretzgin Ani arrived at St. John in 1955 to an eager parish.
There were a small group of people. It wasn't as large as it became after we had the new church, but they were all very devoted, loyal, hardworking people here.
My first pastor was Father Sempadian, Artun Sempadian, who was just like a brother to me.
The old church was a building that had a lot of advantages. You'd step up and then you would be in the sanctuary. But there were also stairs to go downstairs under the church, and there was a large gymnasium there so that the young people could play sports, and that's where they held the festivals. And then on the second floor there were meeting rooms, Sunday school rooms, and on the third floor there were 2 apartments. One was rented, and then we moved into the other apartment, so we were up on the 3rd floor. And it was right off Market Street.
Those early pioneers were the ones who laid a foundation for this community almost 100 years ago. Even though this year we're celebrating the 75th anniversary of St. John Armenian Church, the truth is that this is a much older community than that.
The Elgin Park site remained the spiritual home of the Armenian community of San Francisco until the property was taken over by the state of California for the construction of a freeway.
We were looking for a new place. We could never duplicate what we had there.
The St. John community was fortunate enough to find a plot of land on Olympia Way. They now had to enter a bidding war for this coveted piece of land right in the heart of San Francisco.
There was only one bidder, and that was the developer who was putting up all the houses up on the hill here. And he thought this would be an absolutely fabulous place to have all the model homes. We wanted it desperately.
Through the guidance and leadership of Father Sempadian, St. John won the bid for the Olympia Way site.
I think he was the right person here at the right time. I honestly believe that because of his communication skills, because he knew exactly what the church should look like.
A building committee was formed, and soon after that, the construction process started. On a cold and foggy San Francisco morning on August 1st, 1956, the official rite of groundbreaking was performed, with an eager congregation waiting for their new spiritual home.
All I can tell you is you never saw so many excited parishioners.
The construction was finally completed at the end of 1957. On January 19, 1958, the church was packed with people and a camera crew from KPIX TV for the blessing and consecration of the new church.
When you look out into the congregation on any given Sunday morning and you see somebody who is from a founding family of this community, and you see somebody that's just moved to San Francisco, and you realize they are part of the same fabric, they're part of the same intricately woven tapestry of this very beautiful community, you realize that it's a very dynamic story that's ongoing and unfolding.
After Father Artun Sempadian left St. John in 1968, the parish was blessed with a succession of dedicated and devoted clergy.
Ամենայն ինչ եղևերքից եւ իվերա երկրի երևելի ortnia yegialan vamtiaren ortnutun I partsunus.
Every Armenian community heavily depends on the service and dedication of their parish priest. Most recently, St. John has been blessed to have Father Mesrop Ash at its helm. Father Mesrop was ordained on April 29, 2012, the very first priestly ordination ceremony ever to take place at St. John. Since then, Father Mesrop has served the parish with an example of sacrifice and love for his parishioners.
I remember the day of his ordination, the consecration. For me, that was spiritually very uplifting. Certainly, it was the day for him, and it will continue to be the day for all of you, having Father Mesrop as your brother and as your spiritual father and pastor.
My beloved Father Ash, whose youth and enthusiasm and spirituality have given wings to St. John.
I can see we are dealing with a priest that really loves the youth and the Armenian community. He puts everything else aside and he gives everything of him to protect them and take care of them and teach them.
Father Mesrop, of course, very good, very intellectual, very capable, young man, and we love him and his family very much.
Alleluia, alleluia.
In 1982, Bishop Aris Shirvanian became the pastor of St. John Armenian Church, where he served faithfully until 1998.
I came back to California, where the then primate, Archbishop Hovnan, assigned me as pastor of this St. John Parish in San Francisco in 1982. That became a turning point for me because I never imagined that I would stay in a parish for a long time, but I did for 16 years. I loved San Francisco and I loved my congregation.
That love was never more evident than in 1991 when St. John became a new home for Armenians from Baku.
I was very happy to help them resettle in San Francisco and to resettle here at the St. John Parish. And that was a very rewarding experience for me.
The Armenians of Baku came to the Bay Area after fleeing the brutal Sumgait massacres in 1988. Most of these Armenians left their homes, belongings, and their previous lives. Many of these families relocated to San Francisco, and the St. John community led by Bishop Aris Shirvanian were there to welcome them.
After so many years now that have passed, I'm happy to see the members of those Baku families still around in San Francisco and having accomplished quite a bit in their personal lives.
We love him, we'll never forget him.
There's a few things that cannot be forgotten, like first comers from our community. I remember we sitting in the airplane after all hardship coming, flying to San Francisco airport, wives crying, we don't know what to do, hopeless, new land, no friends, no families, and at the luggage claim there's people standing with sign, David Israel, Seda Kazarian, or Larissa Shalomov. It was Archbishop Shirvanian, Mary Bogikian, Beatrice, Malcolm with stroller, or whoever needs anything. They there reading us, giving us hope, and bringing us to the new city, and from that we were blessed.
Imagine that some of those families had little religious education while at home. So we brought them closer to God and closer to the Armenian Church by such assistance. And I'm glad that now they are part of the fabric of St. John Parish.
Vicky Palangian has been a member of St. John's since 1958 and has sung in the choir for most of that time.
The best moment of my life at St. John has been when our Vehapal Pascal I came to visit my grandson, who was a child at the school. And I remember our beautiful Pascal I putting his hand over the child. And that moment is just sublime to me.
God bless America the beautiful.
In 1960, 2 years after the consecration of the new sanctuary, the community was honored to receive His Holiness Yeretzgin I, Supreme Patriarch and Catholicos of all Armenians. This holy sanctuary has had the honor of hosting every Catholicos of all Armenians since Yeretzgin I.
Have you seen any Santa Claus without white beard?
No.
No. Therefore, the Catholicos also is our spiritual Santa Claus. I'm very, very happy to see you all.
They've all saw fit to come to this community and visit this parish because they know that this parish is an integral part of the mission of the Armenian Church in the diaspora.
Cherezian II visited the parish while also making a pit stop to visit two very special sisters.
Two sisters lived nearby, Vicky and Anne Hovsepian. 13 years prior, Anne, poor thing, had a stroke and she was invalid. She was in a wheelchair. The residence was on the second floor. She could not come downstairs. Well, Bishop Hovnan called me one day, our primate. Vehapar is coming to town. His first pastoral visit to America. My request, before we go up to visit Varnum Paul on Nob Hill, can we stop and visit these two sisters, Vicky and Anne Hovsepian? So we made the arrangements. I had the communion ready. We had the limousine pull up to the house. We knocked on the door. We walk in. Vicky and Anne, I want you to meet Vehapar. If you could see their jaws dropped, and they began to cry. What a sight. And I had the communion prepared, and we had a nice conversation. They prepared some tea, and Vehapar gave them communion. They never forgot that moment, and I'll never forget it. What a blessed opportunity it was to celebrate Badrak here in this sanctuary more than 500 times over the course of 11 years.
Father Sarkis Petoyan became the pastor of St. John in 1998. Soon after arriving, he started a beloved tradition of traveling with members of the community on an annual pilgrimage to Armenia.
We convinced Bishop Vache at that time, please let us arrange a Western Diocese pilgrimage to Armenia. And we convinced only 5 people that first year. And the only one from the parish who came, who signed up, was Jimmy Partorian.
Over the course of 10 years, Father Sarkis and Yeretzgin Talin led 10 different pilgrimages to the homeland.
St. John Apostolic Church raised funds for this family to complete their house. Now we are going to see the completed house.
And we did $400,000 in charity work in the 10 years from this parish, not a penny of parish money.
A total of 250 people participated over the course of those 10 years, with the goal of parish development and humanitarian aid.
Because of that, because of the goodness of the hearts of St. John parishioners, 6 parish priests in remote, forgotten areas of Armenia have automobiles. 6 homeless families in Armenia have a roof over their head that's their own home that they can call theirs.
Pilgrims got to see firsthand where their contributions were going. We are proud that this tradition continues until today.
We donated, I think over the years, 5 separate buildings, thanks to parishioners who donated, and in memory, and I think the Kazarian family, of course the Palangian family, and others. There's a long list, and so we're very grateful for the response.
Welcome to St. John's.
St. John is also the social and cultural center for its faithful.
The food festival to me is just a blast.
As we celebrate the 75th anniversary of our church, we're also celebrating the 75th anniversary of our food festival.
Since 1942, the church has opened its doors to the public with its annual bazaar.
The food festival, which is an integral part of Bay Area life, let's face it, this is an institution all of itself.
The food, in my opinion, is the best. The recipes and the traditions have been passed on through the generations so that we can continue.
Without the support that has been provided by generations of men and women through the food festival, the mission of this church would have not been possible. We would not be here today.
The community comes together every year as preparation for the bazaar begins months in advance, always spearheaded by the parish's Venerable Ladies Society.
It's just amazing that we all come together to make all this food for 8-9 months. In the 2 days we celebrate our church, we celebrate our food, our traditions, our Armenian roots.
Each time I have visited, I have noticed the hard work of the ladies in the church, in the kitchen, their hospitality, the sense of the family orientation in the life of the community has definitely captured my attention.
Everybody knows what they contribute when they're preparing food for the food festival. But what a lot of people might not see is the sympathy card that gets sent to the family who's lost somebody. What they might not see is that meal that's delivered at somebody's front door when they've suffered an accident. The financial support they provide in terms of scholarship for kids to go to camp.
St. John's Karun dance group is directed by Kazarian. The group has been in existence since 1998, and for the past 20 years they have been performing at St. John and other community events.
They can come to this parish and they can have fun learning their cultural inheritance, what is rightfully theirs. It is crucially important that our young people have a place that's theirs within the church.
The St. John Armenian Church Youth Organization is one of the oldest running chapters in the Western Diocese.
They have a place not only wherein they can congregate, but wherein they can communicate and can connect to one another, and they can find answers to their questions and have an outlet for their valuable input and service.
Your Christian faith, your friends, your family are all part of that equation.
The ACYO is thriving under the direction of the parish's youth director, Deacon Charles Cherezian.
It's been such a great feeling to get back involved with the youth because they're the next generation. We need to pass this on to them. They can keep this church, the faith, alive.
Behind every successful ACYO is a strong and vibrant Sunday school.
Sunday school is one of the most important ministries of the church because it brings families into the church in a way that nothing else can.
What do you think that means? My hour has not yet come?
I felt very blessed that when I arrived at this parish, there was already a very strong Sunday school. This church has a very strong tradition of Sunday school.
The younger generation is at the core of St. John's Foundation.
These kids form really strong bonds with one another that is going to help them blossom into friendships as they become older and have core support groups within the church. And those things are very important.
We're doing this kind of thing that's really good for your hands and body.
So you're nurturing your faith, just like we nurture our seeds.
St. John's Garden Ministry was started by Yeretzgin Ani Ash and plays an important hands-on role in the growth of the Sunday school students.
That's been such a wonderful dynamic. My son Artun loves that. He gets so excited for Garden Day.
It goes back to our vision to be able to serve the various people of this community in the ways that will touch their hearts.
The church is always evolving. striving to be a vibrant 21st century parish while being unwavering in its Armenian identity and Orthodox roots.
We are very lucky to have a place like this in the San Francisco Bay Area where people can just come. They can come during the week and volunteer. They can come worship on the weekends. They can get involved in various community activities, outreach activities to help not only the Armenian community, but help the community around us.
Our vision is very simple. It's salvation through Jesus Christ. We're all on this journey together. This congregation as the flock that's been entrusted to me, I hope and pray that as we continue on this journey together, we come closer to that salvation that's promised through Jesus Christ.
St. John has come out of the 20th century serving the Bay Area faithfully and looks to renew its mission to be a gateway to the faith of our forefathers.
There are so many more families that are involved at this time, and it's been a long time since we've seen that kind of involvement. Just a few minutes ago, I was walking through the hall. I saw the Karun dance ensemble practicing. I had my kids up in the choir loft with me. I saw the kids on the altar. The future of this church is everywhere, and I'm seeing it, and I feel so excited and thrilled to be a part of that, and for my kids to be a part of that.
I want to be able to cultivate that same devotion and love for faith that I have in the young people of this church, so they can have that same sort of zealous approach to safeguarding and building up this church for the future.